Hey, this is Ben with Havok holsters, and I know it's been a long time since I put out another video. I just got busy, got overwhelmed with orders, and didn't really have time to do this. We have now since hired a full-time employee, and I figured it was a good time to do another video. We're going to do one that I had been wanting to do, and I really wanted to perfect the process. So we are going to basically explain the process of doing overlays, but vacuum forming. So part of it, obviously, is you're going to need your fabric. I recommend Cadora, Cadora 500 at least. The main reason is that when we get to the cleaning part, you'll see that with a buffer or the felt wheel that I use, it cleans off very nicely. You can use cottons, you can use different fabrics. It's just that some may not clean edges as well as other ones. The other thing you're going to need, normally I have a 12-inch roll, but right now with supplies I'm using a 6-inch roll. I just do 2 on it. We'll show you the process. So it is, I will put the model number of this in here. I think it's like 9472 300 LSE. I believe it's 9472, but if it's not, you'll see it here. So we're going to be doing a holster, an inside the waistband holster. We're going to do police blue. Normally all my personal holsters I do first mate from Holster Builder. Waiting on a restock, so I only have carbon fiber, so we're going to do police blue. And do multicam black overlay. And we're going to be doing it for the SIG X macro. Show you that it is clear. And we'll be using Pale Horse concealment molds, and I'll show you kind of how I block it, the temperature I set the heat press for, and then we'll kind of explain the process. It might be a little bit longer video, but I will be going in detail of the little tips and tricks that I've learned while doing this, and hopefully if you're looking to do this for your product line, that this helps you kind of answer some questions you may be looking for. So let's follow along. Alright, so part of this is we got to get the adhesive onto here. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to take some off here. And again, if you have a 12-inch, you can do this faster. I'm waiting for it to come back in stock, so I got this to hold me over. I don't normally use 2 6-inch pieces, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. So you'll just cut off here. Try to line up as best you can. Alright, so first thing you'll do is, because you're going to have a little bit extra, is cut off the extra pieces. And normally, because I do a lot of these, what I will do is I'll get a little piece of masking tape, because this stuff is a pain, and I'll use that so when I'm done I can just take it off and it leaves it pretty clean. So get the rest of this stuff. Alright, so what I do is I also use like a vinyl scraper, or I don't know what you call these things, but I use it to smooth out and make a really good adhesion. This is not as necessary if you're doing foam pressing, because you have the foam to make a really good seal. But with vacuum, it's a lot more temperamental to do than it is if you do foam pressing. Then so this fabric was the end of a roll, so it's a little bit bigger, so I'll be cutting off a little bit of the excess. But So again, just want to make sure it has a really good bond. I know that the heat's going to help a little bit too, but I found it does help a lot. And then I won't cut to the Kydex because it doesn't need to be. You do want excess of the Kydex because it has, I think it's polyester or nylon, but it has enough of it in it that the heat will shrink the fabric to an extent. So I like to give it an extra brim around it. So you can do this with carbon fiber too. You can do carbon fiber on the inside. I prefer the smooth, the way it feels. So let's get a mold ready, and then let's get to doing a mold for a macro. So obviously it shows macro. I do open-ended. These are the RCS drill points. So you can see that. And we are going to do a monoblock. So my buddy over at Blacksmith Tactical, he made me these guys. So normally you can buy like these. Let's see, are you gonna focus? Okay, so normally you can buy these at like Holstersmith, and these are good and all, but they're more of like drill indicators than anything. These ones are nice because once you form it, you've got drill points with doing vacuum. So if you're familiar with vacuum, like these spots, these basically make those for that. So I like doing no blocking on it because then I can use the mold for multiple things. But yeah, so you don't need a whole lot of tape because we're just holding it in place. Normally, for what I do for the location, I do cut for the extended mag releases, so I'll cut like right here and then down here, and then height wise I usually do right about where the ejection port is because it gives you enough purchase on the firearm. So basically you just need it to hold in place. So there you go. So now we're ready. We'll see if the heat press is ready, and we'll kind of go over that stuff. So we got our heat press, and I'll do more of a zoomed in. So we got our vacuum table, and we got our heat press. I'm running a Heat Press Nation Black Series. I will say that for you that are getting into it, the cheap Chinese ones, they work okay, but definitely if you can invest in a good heat press, it'll save you a lot of headache and it'll last a lot longer. So I got a 16 by 20, 16 by 16 will be just fine. So that's what we got for the heat press. And then again, got our mold, got it ready. So here's one part. So I know that some people will be like, oh, membraneless is the way, which it is, but in this circumstance, it is not. So when you get this hot and it's pliable, and then you form it down, the Kydex and the Kydex, they will stretch at vastly different elasticities, and when you form it down, you try to do it membraneless, where you're using something like this. What will happen is the Kydex will go shoom, and then the fabric will just stay kind of there, maybe come down a little bit. It does not work. So what you have to do is you have to do membrane. That is like the secret key to make this work. At least that's part of it. With it, I like this is, if you're in the Kydex Builders Facebook group, this is one of those guys sells these. It's just clear membrane. So I made my own to be able to do this. You can do smaller sheets too, but this is, you have to do it this way. There's no way around it. I've not figured out a way to do it membraneless, to be able to form down because of those differences, unless there's some way to get the adhesive and then also get the fabric to where it'll bend with the Kydex the same. So I'm gonna throw this in the heat press, and then the next shot will be looking down, and I'll show you a technique that, again, because of the way this is, it does not like to go where you want it to go. So you kind of have to persuade it. So my heat settings for this one is 390 degrees at 115 seconds. Your mileage may vary depending on your heat press. So keep in mind when you're doing this, a lot of this depends on your heat press, how hot it gets. So for me, 390 to 115 seconds will get this close to 390 degrees, and that's what you want. So again, same as always, the inside facing up. You want your fabric side facing down. And I'll see you in 115 seconds. You need is some type of block that fits inside the channel here. So we've got our nice hot Kydex. We'll lay it down. We're going to lay this in here, and what I do is I'll kind of lean it up so the Kydex can move down. Turn on the heat fryer of the vacuum. What that does is it allows the Kydex to start in here and then form around. This is going to give you a nice sight channel instead of, if you left it without doing this, you won't get inside these edges very well. So yeah, everything looks pretty good. We got good detail everywhere. And then the next thing I do is I have a fan to help with this process to cool it down faster. So after it's cooled off, this is a thing that I want to emphasize. I had messed around with different temperatures of taking the vacuum off, because you're going to let it sit under vacuum for a while. And because you want all that pressure on here, you want it to cool off. You want to cool off to where it's going to hold its form. I was pulling it at like 120, because most times with normal Kydex, I can pull it at 120, maybe 110. But 130 is probably the hottest I'll pull it at, and it'll be fine. The detail will be fine. But I noticed when I did that I was getting lifting on the form. And so what I did is I let it cool down lower. So now when I do an overlay, I'll let it cool off with the fan going, because this helps with the speed of the process. I'll let it go down to about 98 degrees-ish, so sub 100, and I'll pull it then. And I've noticed drastic improvement in that the door doesn't lift anymore, and all of the detail's still there. So let it cool off as low as you can. I mean, obviously room temperature is probably like an extreme, but about sub 100 degrees and you'll be fine. So now we're going to process it like a normal holster. I'll show you, my trim jig real quick, and if you have a video on that, I can do that because I make my own trim jigs. And I'll show you my techniques for buffing and then folding, and then the rest of it's a normal holster. But so we'll do the next steps. Alright, so also really quick, you're going through Kydex, it's going to be all jinky looking. X-Acto blade, have it by your drill or whatever, and it cleans them up. You can also, if you want, you can use a torch. Most of this has screws and stuff under it, so you're not going to see it, but this will help with putting your trim jig on. The Kydex will get in the way. I mean, it depends on your trim jig, but yeah. So here's my trim jig. It is a MDF mold. I make them. So this one says 365X macro. I also 3D print my little screws. So regular screw, 3D print little grippy thing. attach. Now we're gonna do a rough cut, go over the router, and then we'll clean up. Alright, so now we got it trimmed off. I cut the little extra because this is going to be inside the waistband, and this is, I guess, the belt side, and this will be your body side. So normally people will use a normal buffing wheel. It's sacrificial, it just goes away. This is, I believe, a felt buffing wheel, and I have not found ones that will clean this well. You can buff the whole thing with this. Just have to remember that this can burn the Kydex, so you have to be careful. But a lot of times I'll use this to clean all the edges. So let's go through that. Use the light so you can see. To fold, most people I've seen kind of use either real steel or molds or whatever. I guess you could do it on either. So what you're going to be doing is obviously folding. We're going to prep. I use real steel to fold all of my firearms because it is there we go. It's more accurate. So we're going to prep that real quick, and I'll show you one thing that is different that I do. So again, I do 3 layers. Gives me enough leeway that it's going to be tight, but it's not going to be, you know, rubbing on the slide when you're trying to go on holster. Alright, so we got that prepped. So this is kind of the thing that I had to figure out, is you do a dowel rod. So because if you fold it like normal, it's going to create too sharp of an angle and you're going to get lifting. What this does is forces the sight channel to be more round. And you don't need all of it covered, you just need it to hold in place. So there's that. And then again with this, you don't want it too hot, you don't want the center, where are we at? You do not want the center to be almost melty, you just want it pliable, because you want to get it hot enough to melt, but you want it cool enough where it's just where it's at that point. I usually don't put it on the strip heater, I'll just kind of hover it. Alright, so now we got it over. Put a clamp on the trigger guard. Because this does like to fight. Put one on the slide so that way it's tight. And if you have any lifting, now is the time to try to get some of that lifting fixed. But now you got this nice edge, you can see, let's see, no lifting. So the dowel rod really helped, gives it a nice round edge. So we'll just let it cool off, or you can use air compressor and cool it off that way, but then we'll be done. We'll show you the finished product. Okay, so we have the finished product. Did police blue on the inside, multicam black, got the H, DCC clip, mod wing, and then good to go. Next video, we're going to go over sublimination. So if you're looking to do it, I know there's some videos out there. The stuff that I've been seeing, I was just like, that's not the way I do it. You overcomplicate it, and I'm doing it with, I feel better results. So look out for a video on sublimination. Hopefully it'll help and give you some direction in what you're doing, and stay tuned for the next video.